Hello and welcome. This is Reanimated. It's the podcast about all things zombie undead, otherwise moldering in the grave or outside of it. My name's Stuart. I'm one of your hosts. I'm coming at you from the West Coast, and joining me the other side of this parallelogram is H.A. Conrad in New York. Hello, H.A.
Hello, hello.
I am happy to speak to you today. This is our first, this feels like kind of a big deal because all of us are dead was like a massive undertaking, and now we are on the other side of it. Do you have like different feelings about it now that it's kind of in the rear view, or are you still consistent?
No, I'm consistent. I would see a sequel to that. Again, I really like what's coming out of South Korea in terms of zombie things and horror things, and that was a massive undertaking. There were some really cool things about it. And, I'm not as curmudgeonly as Kyle in terms of my ratings of it. I really had fun with it. And I'd recommend it to people who are into the genre. But I think I'm totally fine with All of Us Are Dead. I liked it.
Kyle effectively gave it a D plus, and,
I know.
and then went on to say that it was fun.
He's the best, though. He's the best.
Yes.
That was fun having him on for that. Although I knew he would not join us for any Walking Dead franchise discussions. So sadly, we are without him today, since we are talking about the first couple of episodes of season 7 of Fear the Walking Dead.
Yeah, man. I to kind of like remind myself of where we left off, I will generally go back and like try to remember what we had said the last time we finished up a season of Fear or The Walking Dead.
Did we say never, never again?
We kind of were fairly consistently in season 6 saying, should we stop talking about Fear the Walking Dead? Should we no longer be reviewing or recapping it because it makes us angry?
I think that anger theme has continued for me into the season for so many reasons. But I mean, we're gonna talk about it, I guess. I did refresh my memory by watching a bit of because it was a little muddy to me, the season finale, and then I remembered what made us so angry about it watching it. But anyway, we're into it. We made the decision. We're gonna have to talk about this.
We are.
We're gonna have to talk about Bruno. No.
Bruno,
But
don't you dare malign the name of Bruno with Fear the Walking Dead.
I know.
Bruno
anyway,
did nothing wrong.
He can do nothing wrong. But anyway, but we're gonna dive into it. We're gonna talk about this. But before we get to that, we did have a couple of news items, kind of roundabout, terribly written news items, but here they are. One is and not terribly written in the terribly written in the roundabout way they get to whatever the heck they're trying to talk about in both of these articles, actually. So we have an article about the Army of the Dead Las Vegas animated series that Zack Snyder is going to do. It's a prequel. And basically it's like the headline is that this whole thing is gonna like change the whole franchise, and took almost the entire article to get to the point, which is a little tough. But
yeah, the 8th paragraph, Screen Rant editors, is not where you should be making your thesis statement. So please don't make it that difficult for me.
It's the clickbaitiest of clickbait, I would say, just for that reason.
I mean, they have plenty to say about the topic.
They do.
It's just that the headline and the actual one sentence that has anything to do with it are not anywhere close to one another. So, yeah.
But basically, because it's a prequel, it's going to give us all sorts of new information, I guess, about the franchise. But so that's the gist, but go ahead and read the article if you'd like. And the second article is about an I Am Legend 2, which is tough to say what it would be. If it will be, it seems like it's maybe a go.
We've had this conversation before, so it does feel a little bit like deja vu.
It feels like deja vu, and I just don't know what they would do with this. I mean, they made it very clear that the character played by Will Smith got destroyed at the end. The dog died. They make a point of that in the article. So what would you do with this? But I guess we'll see what happens. It's interesting because I thought it was a really weird way to end this film, given the whole point of the short story by Heinlein, which is that basically it turns the whole sort of, last man standing story mythos on its head, because it turns out he's like basically the monster to the in this actual story. It's vampires, not zombies.
It's Richard Matheson also.
Oh, sorry, Matheson, not Hyland.
Heinlein was like a sci-fi writer.
Yeah, you know, the two of them are crazy, but sorry, Matheson.
Okay.
But in any case, it turned the whole idea on its head, because basically it turns out the hero character, who we think is the hero character, is actually like the monster that all the vampires are afraid of, because he's like stalking them as they sleep. And it is kind of a cool way to do things, and I was sort of surprised that they didn't go that way, because it was such a different way to end something. So I don't know what they're going to do with this ultimately, but apparently they are doing a
To
second
me, the
film.
biggest news here, I don't know if you did you mention that Michael B. Jordan is also supposed to be in this with
Oh, I didn't.
with
I did.
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air with Will Smith. Like, to me, that's the only news I think that there really is for this potential sequel, is that they have these two megastars signed up to do it, and sometimes that's all you need. Most of the time you need a lot more than that, like a good script, but sometimes all you need is two megastars.
Yeah, and I mean, I love Michael B. Jordan, so and I like Will Smith, so I like, let's see what they do with it. And you know, that's all I have to say about that until we get more information. Again, it's still very like tenuous and
Yeah.
scattered at this point, so we'll have to see.
None of these news sources are coming from
Mhm.
like Variety or Hollywood Insider sort of sources. It's more like blogs, but you know, they've seemed to have picked up on something that was leaked by a potential producer, so watch this space. Yeah.
So with that, I think
Yeah.
we should hop into
Let's
some
get into it.
Fear the Walking Dead. So to just remind those of you who care that
It
are
might be a lot
listening,
of them. It might be a lot of
it
people.
might be. The finale of season 6 was that basically they shot off these warheads, and it was again over walkie-talkie that Morgan told everybody, oh, it's going to be the end, not the end we wanted. And it went on for a really long time.
Mhm.
And then you know, against all odds, we had Sherry and Dwight hiding under a house with a family. We had our trusty people in our little like armored vehicle getting rescued by the CRM, it appeared.
Oh, right.
We
Yeah.
had Morgan and Grace, weirdly, like, you know, they were going to kill themselves. They found baby Mo.
Yeah, like they heard the baby crying from inside the submarine,
Right,
right?
right. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So they went out and saved the baby.
But then they shield
And
themselves under a truck. Like,
yeah,
what?
yeah, they got through it through a truck, under a truck. And then there's also Jenna Elfman and Keith
Right.
Carradine. What are their characters' names? John Dory
June.
Sr. and June.
Yep.
They
And
went down into Teddy, the evil villain from last season, into his bunker that he had like prepared for himself.
right. And yeah, so
Oh, and Alicia, I guess, was in another bunker to
right.
lead the people into the future, because Teddy had taken a shine to her
Right.
after knowing her for about 32 seconds.
Right. And Dakota just gets obliterated. And
Thank you.
And then also Strand finds a hotel with a historian that has taken these precious objects.
Do you think this is a hotel? It looks like an office building.
Maybe it looks like a hotel to me or something. But anyway,
I'm very confused about this building. Like,
yeah,
why it had all this stuff in it to begin with.
Yeah, it's confusing.
Yeah, and at the end of last season, he meets Howard, who is played by God. Who plays Howard? It's a respectable actor.
Yep.
What's his name?
Here, we'll have
Omar
to look
something, I think.
Omar Abtahi.
Yeah, Omid Abtahi. And I got like, once again, Fear the Walking Dead has conned some like good actor into coming out of their show. And what, I don't know what his role is going to be, but in these 2 episodes, he's a henchman. He is like, he is just like,
yeah. And it's weird because it's like he is this mild-mannered historian that goes and like collects things. And I mean, you have to guess that he's got some kind of survival skill, right?
I mean, we're 10 years in, right? We're about, I think, on par with the timeline of the Walking Dead Prime.
I mean,
So
So
anybody who's been alive, anybody on the show has managed to survive in the zombie
right.
apocalypse.
And they have a back and forth in this where, Victor basically talks about uh Morgan and talks about different kinds of people. And then he actually introduces himself as Morgan Jones. And then after the warheads go off and the two of them are still like hanging out, he was like, ha ha ha, I'm not Morgan Jones, I'm Evil Strand. And we go from there. So that kind of leads us into
Yeah.
this whole season.
There's
And
been a time jump, or some
yeah,
amount of time has passed. Certainly, when we get to know this character Will in the first part of the Beacon, episode 1, and he has been scratching things into a wall and says that he's been living in this van for 50 days,
yeah.
in the fallout irradiated area. And how do you okay? So the showrunners, Chambliss and Goldberg, long may they reign. I don't mean that. They decided to nuke their show, right? And so they're no longer able to shoot their scenes on normal outdoor
Right.
sets, I guess, other than maybe the roof of that building.
Yep.
uh,
And in a sub.
where do you, and no, that's inside. Like there's
Oh,
outdoor
you mean
sets.
outside?
Outdoor
Yeah.
is gone for this
Yeah.
show, and it
Yeah.
was a fair amount of the show because it's a post-apocalyptic society has broken down, except there are way too many places with power. Somehow Fear the Walking Dead has always operated on like the different set of rules from the Prime show. There are guns everywhere still. There's ammo everywhere still. There are cars that run on 10-year-old diesel. How do you, from a production standpoint, these outdoor scenes that we're looking at with Will going through his survival, everything is orange. You
Yeah.
can't see
Everything
the
looks the same.
horizon. You can never see the horizon. You can never
Yep.
see more than like 10 feet away. What's your, are they shooting this inside, do you think? How are they doing this? Because there's a lot of
Well,
wind also.
yeah, I felt like they were maybe doing this Mandalorian style if they
Ooh.
had the budget for that, or just like
Oh
in a
man,
desert, and they're just like throwing some like, because it's like a lot of smoke and dust, and
orange chalk. I don't know.
they don't really need all that. I mean, and that's the thing, it all kind of looks the same. And I will also say the decision to make this what's happened in this world seems so ridiculous to me, because like, look, all of these people would be dead. I mean, they just would be dead. Not maybe the people in the bunkers who have the food supply and air filtration, fine. Maybe you're going to give them some amount of lifeline, but anybody, even like when they were showing any of these characters, both in this episode and the next episode, going out that are protecting them, it's like they're protecting themselves until they're not. They have little Geiger counters. There's no food. There's no water. It is a wasteland. And I even have some very specific, just complete doubts about the fact that how they explain that Strand has like an oasis going on.
Yeah,
Seems
weather
very
patterns. Yeah,
seems very just completely ridiculous. But anyway,
yeah.
we've got Will, and they're using him to basically show what the world is about. And they show him sort of like suiting up, but living in this like somehow protected van. He has like limited water. He can't find food. And then it's super depressing, and he's just about to give up, and then gets kind of rescued by Strand people, or more interrogated, I guess is a better way to put it. Added to this is a group of people that basically skin walkers for some reason. And
Take their clothes, not skin them, right?
I don't know.
What does he call them? Scrappers or
I don't
sneakers?
remember, something, stalkers. And they
the
strip them of
shootout
their
that they have
clothes.
with Strand's scouts later is kind of funny because the scouters, the stalkers are all wearing like plastic bags.
Yeah.
But everybody has machine guns. This is one of these things where I'm just like, why? Why? I don't understand the difference. Like Gimple, what is Gimple doing?
I don't know, but anyway, Will gets to the Strand place. We all know it's Strand, even when we hear his voice, everybody knows that. And then Will gets to see this happy oasis that Strand has built.
Yoga.
And it's all just a little unbelievable. And ultimately Will reveals himself to be part of a group that was like, he knows who Alicia is. And they really take their time getting to this point. Like Will shows Strand the medal that Strand had given Alicia. But by the way, there's a lot of those medals. Like, how would it be the same? I don't know. Like, there's a
It's
lot of
the only one.
assumptions.
It's the only one, AJ.
Right. There's like
One
a
of a
lot of
kind.
assumptions being made on this point. And then Strand decides to go out into the wilds to basically be led to wherever Alicia is. And there's just a lot of like this slow reveal of who Will is. And as it turns out, he was not necessarily part of the cult. He was part of this like entourage of a
senator.
senator.
This is actually
And
kind of an interesting idea if they had brought it up in an earlier
right.
season of the show. It's a little absurd that for 10 years, a senator and his aides were living in a hotel basement. And
right.
And like it didn't fall apart because of anything that they did to each other. It was, yeah, that's just weird. I mean, that's no weirder than like there's an office building full of coworkers who've been living together for 10 years, slowly dying of
Right.
the Black Death or whatever it was. But yeah,
Right.
kind of a, I don't know. Every so often, Chambliss and Goldberg have a decent idea, but they almost always destroy it within seconds. And so,
Yeah, and in this case, we don't even get to see some of the cooler parts of this idea, or maybe some things will happen later. But
they certainly name drop Senator Vasquez like
yeah,
13 times in this episode, but then they're like, he's dead.
right.
So
Like I thought they were going somewhere with that, and
yeah,
until they said that, and then but basically, you know, there's this whole thing where Strand has built his little oasis, but you have to have use to be there. It's actually a little Negan-esque, honestly, that people have to actually like carry their weight, and they definitely live in fear probably of being thrown out in this case. So there's like, in addition to the zombies, there's other things that people have to worry about.
what do we think are the yoga and painters room doing to like contribute to the society?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out, but they have to be contributing something.
Just because he said so. Yeah.
Yes. So maybe we'll learn that later. But you know, and they're growing strawberries, they're growing produce on the roof, and their convenient reason for why they're able to do all of this is because the weather blew all the radioactivity away from them. It seems suspect, but that's
Definitely.
where we're going. And then, you know, and then Strand out in the world with Will, they both reveal various things to each other. You know, we've seen this with Strand before over and over and over again. He's redeemed, he's not redeemed, he's redeemed, he's not redeemed. And in this case, they do their big sort of reveal at the end of the episode. But we also have some revelations from Will where like basically they talk in these like guarded and weird ways about leadership and fear, and you know, the ongoing sort of debate about what is the better way to lead people. And Will is like, oh, Alicia threw me out because I wouldn't do something for her that would put her at risk, and he was in love with her. And then Strand's like, yeah, but you can't, you have to lead alone. Like, it's this sort of an, I, for me, this is an incredibly annoying, because this is ground that has been like, we have walked this ground so many times, especially on this show, but also on the original Walking Dead. And it's a little tired, and especially with, to me, with Victor's character, it's like, oh, we're doing evil Victor again. Okay, got it. You know,
Well,
like,
yeah.
I don't know, what did you feel?
I remember at the end of last season that I was actually kind of relieved that they were going to pick something for Strand because they kind of just left him as an afterthought for a couple of seasons.
True.
So I was like, okay, they're going to make Victor evil. Fine. And then when he met Will, the way he was looking at him, I was like, Victor is either going to screw this man or kill him, or maybe both. And I kind of like the fact that those were my choices on the menu for how Strand was going to interact with Will. It was either like, you're going to become my property, or you are going to die, and maybe you will become my property and then die shortly thereafter. It turns out that they did not connect amorously, although I felt like there was some.
Yeah, it felt like there were some vibes there. I did like that, you know, Strand tries to kill Will multiple times in this
4 or 5.
And so I think it was sort of like when he finally does it at the end by tossing him off the building, it's kind of like, oh, okay, so that's where we are. And basically he does it because Will has revealed something about himself that he doesn't really like, which is that he did go out to try to like find Alicia. He is worried about her.
Victor even admits, he's like, I guess I need her. and so do you.
Yep.
Like he has these moments of opening up where he's being honest in that moment. He's
Yep.
like, I need Alicia. But he also reveals that even as he's saying that, he has just brought it back, this like lighthouse beacon, to create a giant wall of zombies around his fortress so that she can never get to him. Like,
Right.
I'm curious about this writer's room. Like, I would love to be a fly on the wall in there and be like, do you guys even like talk about the
Yeah.
inconsistencies in your
Right.
plot? Like,
Right.
is that even a thing that comes up, or are you just like, yeah, and then after all of this development, we're just going to throw him off the roof anyway, and Strand's going to say, I've been doing this for another reason that you wouldn't have thought of, because it's bananas.
Yeah, it's also a ton of effort to bring that light thing and have fuel to fuel it.
And
Like, why
don't
would
forget
this?
that in the next episode, freaking Howard and some scouts are outside the compound again.
Right.
So
Right. So
there
it's not
must.
like that. I don't know, like all these inconsistencies, and this is just the first episode. I was like, oh no, writer's room, what are you doing? And we even have this incredible like lead up to finally Strand and Will get to the bunker where Alicia had been housed with these like doomsday people. And instead of leaving like a note or like a real note for Will, it just
It's
the
just one
ridiculous
word.
note that says Padre with an incredibly mystical painting set up behind it. And like it's just like, oh good lord, really? So anyway, I like
Can
this.
I just also wax on slightly about this bunker concept, which
Yeah.
we never got to see inside of until
No.
this episode. I don't know if you've ever read the book series called Wool by I think his name is
Yes,
Hugh
yes, yes,
Howey.
yeah, I love that
There
one.
was an opportunity here to, you don't have to go full Wool. Wool is like a multi-generational bunker story. This would have been maybe a year, maybe a 6-month bunker story,
Yeah.
but you could have had a cool bunker story here
You
that
could
they
have had a
just.
bottle episode just about the bunker, right?
Yes, and because all you get is from Will saying like she was locked up with people in the cult who she wasn't a part of, and yet she could have been bitter like you, Strand, but she chose to lead, and it's like, they just don't want to do any of the actual work on this, and so by the time you get to the bunker, it's empty, and you don't really care, and we're going to move on because she's moved on. So I guess
Right.
all of
But
that.
also can we point out that had they done that, you also would have been saved from some of this like insane bleak outdoor stuff.
Yeah.
Um, just saying. Or at least saved for a little while. I don't know. It just feels like um I don't know.
So
We'll have to.
this is a disappointing beginning for the season for me. I feel like I have come into other Fear the Walking Dead seasons, and the first episode I'm generally like, oh, okay, yeah, I see where they're going. This could be interesting, and I see where they're going here. It's going to be a Morgan versus Strand. Like last season was a Morgan versus Virginia, and the season before that was I don't know who Morgan was versus. Then maybe it was the Dirty Woman or something.
Yeah.
But it's one of these, and then clearly Alicia's going to be out there somewhere as some sort of live wire, finding Padre, which is probably code for Kim Dickens, I assume, since they'd spoiled that she was coming back this
Yeah.
season.
Yep.
So yeah, episode 1, I was just a little bit not feeling it. I'm not loving Strand's like obsession with like antiques. He was always into fine things because he is like a gold digger, right? From season 1 of this show. He was always into like good scotch and yachts and nice houses, but he was never like a fan of history. And so for him to be like wearing this little military cap and carrying some dead guy, some old general's sword and thinking it's a big deal. I mean, maybe he would get into that because
But he is into
he's
costumes.
into status, right?
He's into costumes and status. I mean, remember when he was with Virginia's people?
Wearing
He had his little
ranger.
outfit. He had his little thing going on, his key. Like, so I think he's into whatever gives him some kind of sense of power, maybe.
Okay, that could be consistent. I just like his horse is wearing like a little saddle blanket that looks like it's from the Revolutionary War. There's just they're putting all these details in there that like he is Napoleon and or some
Right.
post-apocalyptic zombie version of Napoleon, and that's clearly what they're basing his character on. I think it's like me, power. So far, not loving it, but we can
Yeah,
move on to
and
episode.
again, we can talk about how his buddy, his right hand man, Howard, now is just sort of fully supporting him in every way. Um, so anyway,
Yeah,
jumping into the next episode, which is called 6 Hours.
yeah.
And this is, definitely a Morgan Grace and Mo story.
Joint.
And
It
um,
begins with a type of horror with which I am painfully familiar, which is the never-ending crying baby horror.
yep, yep. And it is a horror, and I don't blame them for that. But again, this is like more of the same in terms of seeing the bleakness of what is outside, the danger of what is outside, but the seemingly uneven way that they apply protective gear. I mean, at least with these characters, you have Grace, who has some kind of knowledge of what radioactive poisoning will, like what radiation will do. We know that she has all this knowledge, and they talk about it, and they talk about how they have to have protective gear. They can only go out for 6 hours at a time, and they have to like switch off. And again, there's just no way that this would be, and there'd be no way that these characters would have survived, in my opinion. But anyway, we're going with it because that's what they've done here. And but they go to great lengths to explain some of the safety things that they are doing, to their outfits, to their little Geiger counters. But much like the Will character, they can't find food that isn't contaminated. So it's like a very bleak thing. And the little baby Mo just needs food, and she's just crying because she's so hungry. And ultimately, I think the kid probably would have eaten something. It's hard for her, but she probably would have if she was that hungry. But
They're trying to like feed her chopped up like
yeah,
canned peaches and stuff,
yeah,
and that isn't an ideal first. I would say that's probably not a great first food. Like
yeah,
first solids, you want to have like oatmeals and lentils and
yeah,
mashes.
yeah.
Mashes are really where you want to be. But I think some kids like eat beans at a very,
Yeah,
very
yeah.
early
I
age.
mean, I just think if a kid's that hungry, they're gonna do it, and they could have done the peach juice or something. But
Yeah,
anyway,
kids are also like the most stubborn creatures on the face of the earth, and so they might Mo might legit just be like, nah, you go get me some formula. I will just be here crying until you
um,
return.
I will admit my biggest fear about what was going to happen in these scenes was that one or both of them would spontaneously start lactating or something. So
Ugh.
I was afraid that that's where this was going to go.
Morgan.
I don't know. It felt like maybe they would do that because they've done some insane things here. So I was like, oh, thank goodness they didn't do that.
Yeah,
Um,
no, they went the other way. Instead of Grace like developing a maternal instinct, she's
yeah,
like, I just want to kill myself. Like that is
which
Grace's major theme for this episode is I didn't sign up for this. We were about to shoot ourselves when we heard the baby crying. Like, right, they were gonna do
right.
one bullet, two heads, or
Yep.
was it two guns, two heads? I forget,
No,
but they
no,
had
no.
some
It
elaborate.
was Morgan going to shoot himself through the head, which would supposedly then go through Grace's head. So there you
um
go.
yeah, a tale, a love story to last the ages for
Um,
sure.
and I did like how they showed how sort of, I mean, Grace is still dealing with the trauma of losing her baby, and this was where her head was at. Also, remember, she lived through like a radiation incident at the last place, watched her partner die, who had been Athena's dad.
Well, and
And
Athena basically soaked up all the red, right?
yeah, and Athena died, and then it's, she's got a lot going on. And she's really just like having some incredibly difficult things she's getting through. That said, Morgan's just like, hey, we're gonna live like this happy normal family. Like, he's got the blinders on, because I think you can notice that Grace is dealing with stuff, and maybe he does notice it, he just doesn't want to deal with it or doesn't want to talk about it because he's maybe afraid of making it worse. But he creates this like crazy escape car, which I think was kind of cool. I don't know that he'd actually
Yeah,
be able to do that, but he did, and he
he
has
did
like,
it in 6 hours.
right. And they make their escape. And then they're seeing even more of the devastation. So we see all this other stuff. Rufus the dog is still hanging in.
Let's talk
Um,
also about their treatment of animals. None of the horses get protective
right,
gear,
right,
and Rufus is just wandering around outside with
right.
his very, very bloodhoundy nose and face exposed to the elements. I mean, I think every animal that's ever been on this show, Skidmark, Rufus, all probably should be dead by the end of episode 3, I guess.
Right, and they don't really give any reason why they wouldn't be, and they're in really good shape. Like unless like even with Strand and his horses, and then the horses kind of run around and conveniently avoid all walkers too.
Yeah, they
That's
just
the other thing.
tie up. Wait, there was one scene where they just left a horse outside. It was outside the Franklin, I think.
Yeah,
And after they leave the Franklin, they show that they're back on the horse riding away, and there are zombies everywhere. But the
right.
horse apparently just like tied up in front was fine. They're just really picking and choosing what they want to do. They don't want to apply their rules evenly. I think you've said that already, but it's just frustrating.
Yep. But anyway, they're rolling around, and then Grace has a freak out about her dream song because she can't deal with it, and they have a moment where they're like run off the road or something, or like
Yeah.
skidding out on the road. And
How can two
again,
adults not figure out how to eject a tape? And why is Morgan driving fast enough that he can bend a wheel through a
right,
town?
right, that has nothing going on in it, by the way. Just saying. And then they run into two survivors, and it felt like maybe Grace had run into them before in the other
They were in the
town.
store. They were, yeah. So
So
yeah,
how far away is this, and how
it's
did they
3 hours.
get there?
They've been outside for 3 hours based on
Right,
the timer. So they've
right,
driven for 3 hours. They've used half of their fuel, and these two people on foot are right
right.
there, who they already saw. I don't know if it was the same day or earlier that day or the day
I
before.
don't know, but regardless, they have magical winged radioactive feet or something. But
So these two,
they
B and Fred, all wrapped up in bandages, a little bit like some other nuclear horror stories that you've seen where they're all like falling apart. Except Fred. Fred is wearing bandages, but he looks basically fine when you finally see his
he
face.
totally looks fine, and it's like, why are you doing that? I don't understand.
It's a fairly familiar trope of this is our baby. We're taking this baby. We're gonna get this baby somewhere safe. Remember what happened to the last baby? Some hidden, not hidden,
Yeah.
but some worried stuff. There's an exchange between Grace and B later where she's like, "Oh, are you from this town?" And B's like, "Yeah, we all grew up here," or something along those lines. Fred, meanwhile, and HA, I don't know if you can back me up on this, is clearly from Pennsylvania or Maryland. He has a strong accent.
Oh yeah, he's
He is not a
definitely.
California boy.
He is not in any way a Texan or California or
Sorry,
nothing.
Texan. Yeah, we're in Texas, not California.
Yep, yep.
But not a drawl. That is a clipped, either Pennsylvania, Maryland sort of accent. And I'm just like, this is not a guy who came from this town. I don't know why. I don't know if this actor just comes with this accent and he's like, this is it. This is all you get. Or if they
Yeah,
were like, hey, do something like Mayor of Easttown for our show or whatever it was. It was so funny to me.
yeah.
Also
It was
not that funny.
really strange. So anyway, um, there's all sorts of things going on. They lived in this town and had little like cans wired up to each house, which I was like, okay. And basically we get this like we have this incredibly frustrating to me anyway. I don't know, maybe you liked it, but I did not. This frustrating group of scenes where they think the baby is there, but it's not. They're talking about getting out, and then like Morgan and Grace or especially Morgan is trying to use like this psychology to say, hey, we'll all get together, we'll save the baby, um and all of this stuff plays out. And I mean, like I just don't buy so much of what they're selling in these scenes. But first of all, these two people have soaked in enough radiation that they are a danger to everybody they're around.
They basically suggested that after they picked up the can of formula in the store earlier, that it was too radiated to use anymore, right? Like,
Right.
because she has
Right.
it to the Geiger counter. They come in, she hides.
Right.
They leave. She gets back out and picks up this. I feel like it's the same can that had read
Yeah.
clear before,
Yeah.
and now
Yeah.
it is like off the charts. And they're touching the baby.
Right. And then she's like, oh, well, she'll survive them, but not what else is going on. And it's like, they're just like this uneven application of science is very disturbing. So anyway, and then they're both like somehow crazy thinking that this is their baby, but then they know it's not their baby. Like it's a really convoluted way to tell the story. And then
Also,
as
all
it
the
turned,
running back and forth from the car to the garage, from the
right,
car to their house. Sometimes we end up in their house with their crazy wall map on the wall where
yeah,
they've got the circles. It's just, again, with the whoever was putting this episode together, it was just like, yeah, they're just gonna, they're gonna keep running into buildings, and don't worry, it's gonna be like one of them's gonna be their old house or something.
yeah,
And then one of the most frustrating parts of this episode is when RoboCop shows up,
yep,
and with their their evil truck that makes evil revving sounds and has
yeah,
evil spotlights,
yeah.
and then Morgan shoots RoboCop 3 times. And I'm sorry if I'm spoiling the end here, but it's Emil's brother.
Yep.
Clearly, it's Emil's twin brother. We don't know his name yet. All we know is that he has Emil's head in a box. And the
Mhm.
box has Morgan Jones on it. So Emil's brother is apparently gifted like Emil was. It's played by this. He's played by the same actor also.
Mm.
Oh God,
Had to get
what's
him back in the game, right?
yeah? And I'm forgetting his name. Oh wait, no, I wrote it down. It's Demetrius Gross, and I do like this actor.
Me
I
too.
just don't like this is a super soap opera-y sort of a method here to be like, you thought you'd killed me, but actually now
Yeah, I know.
now it's me again, but a different me. And so my question here is, how did Emil's brother even remotely find Morgan in this scene? Like, he just drives up in this town 3 hours away from where they had been last, and somehow, even though he is a good 100 feet away, knows that this is Morgan when he has his little monologue at the end of the episode.
Exactly. He's barely even seen him. And again,
He's just seen his name on a
right,
box.
you've never seen his face. Like, how do you know it?
Well,
Unless
maybe
maybe,
it's because Rufus was there, and he's like, if you had Rufus, you must be Morgan Jones. What?
but why would he even know that that's what had happened to? I don't
Nope,
know.
makes no
Anyway,
sense.
it's all a little, again, convoluted, makes no sense. Um, but ultimately, we have Morgan Jones and Grace coming to some kind of understanding. Grace saves the baby. She decides she wants to live,
She just
and they
shoots
go,
Fred. Fred
yeah,
hasn't even touched this. Like, so they're suggesting that
yeah,
Fred killed
kill the
Emma,
other baby.
and Fred is going to kill Mo, and he's just got his hands out and he's about to put them on her face. And Grace just shoots him in the head. Does not he doesn't even get he doesn't even well, I mean, maybe he's irradiated, she doesn't want him to touch her, but she also gave Mo to Fred to say keep her quiet. Like, so Fred has already been
Right.
holding the baby. That apparently is no longer a giant concern. uh but did you think that was a bit abrupt?
Yeah, I thought it was abrupt, but also, the whole this whole couple and their whole story is bizarre. And they're trying to get to Padre again, this mysterious thing, and nobody's supposed to talk about what it is. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like, are we really gonna do this stupid thing where it's like this mysterious thing and
Yeah,
nobody wants to talk about it? I mean,
and the
we're
payoff is going to be something that is not
lame.
that exciting.
Yeah, yeah.
They've also kind of revealed that they tried to drive out east, same thing that Morgan has been trying to do, and that's how they got so disfigured and burned. And they're like, you try to go out there, you're just going to get as bad as we are, because all the fallout was blown that direction. Which I guess, possible. It feels a little too it also feels like a plot device to keep them near Strand. That is
Yeah,
unfortunate.
definitely.
And like, why wouldn't they just then say, okay, we won't go east, we'll go north?
Right.
We're already 3 hours east of where we started. I assume they're going east. Maybe they are already going north. I'm not really sure where they were. They're on the coast of Texas, so maybe that means actually they're like a Corpus Christi area and they have to go west or north. But either way, they've been driving for 3 hours. They should be able to change direction and find something, I would think. But now the show has been like, nope, everything in the direction you were going is bad. Therefore, the only way you can go is back the way you came. And so that's the decision they end up making. I guess they really wanted to use their submarine set.
Yes, so they go back, and then they run into Howard and his men who were on the sub, and not shockingly, offer to give Grace and the baby a spot. And Morgan's name is Mud with Strand, and the again the
This was
sort
the
of
scene with Howard where I was just like, is this the mild mannered historian that we met at the end of last
right.
season?
Suddenly he's all tough. He's a henchman, and I'm just sort of like, huh, this is curiouser and curiouser, but cool. And also the fact that they just kind of take this story with no sort of it's Strand we're talking about, and the fact that he has supposedly built an oasis that is, all the things that this guy's saying. I just don't know that Morgan and Grace would have believed it totally, right? Or at least that I feel like there would have been some skepticism there, but okay, you got to move the plot along. And definitely not shocking that they don't believe him really, or they do believe him, but like they don't go with him, and then miraculously discover a whole store of food in the sub, and so they're okay.
And they find it because Mo is crawling across
Yes.
the floor that in their kitchen, where so they've spent many an hour in this room, I assume, and had never noticed there's something under the floor until Mo
Right.
crawls across it.
Right.
When Howard is like, "You're not invited, Morgan. You're not, you're persona non grata." And I'm just remembering back to the last episode of Fear the Walking Dead of last season. It was Strand who tried to kill Morgan. Strand
Yeah.
was like, and Strand knows that he was the instigator of all the bad stuff.
Yeah, totally.
He even, like, to the extent that he was calling himself Morgan right at the end of the season,
Yeah.
until then he was like, no, now I am evil Strand. But I'm just like, Howard, why is anybody going to be like, yeah, Morgan, you're bad news? I'm just like, it
I
doesn't make
know, right?
sense.
It doesn't make sense at all. So anyway, that's where we are. We know the identical twin brother of Emil, Josiah, is now out to get Morgan. We know Strand doesn't like Morgan. Again, Morgan's persona non grata, and I guess we're gonna find out more about our CRM crew, hopefully, in the next episode.
It looked
But
like the preview shots, which I didn't watch any of it, but
I didn't
it was
either.
June and John Dory
Oh, so maybe we got
having
them.
having some sort of sweet moment together in their bunker.
Well, there we are. But anyway, I look forward to tearing apart this season with you, Stuart. Can't wait for Kim Dickinson to arrive, and maybe we'll see what happens. I am looking forward to her reunion with Strand, which has to happen, right? So
I mean, it's her and Alicia. It's Kim Dickens and Alicia Debnam Carey and Coleman Domingo are the only three left on the show. I guess Daniel Salazar is around somewhere. Where the hell did he go?
He's with the CRM group. So
Okay.
him and Lucia. So sorry, Kim Dickens, not Dickinson. And but anyway, I have no faith that this will get better, but hopefully it will, and we'll continue our rants about it. But
yeah, I wonder also what happened to the Lake Town people.
Yeah.
Also to Victor's old community, and if this show has just casually said they're all dead, then it's just this. I think this is a Shambliss Goldberg-ism, where they build things up and then they just cast them aside and don't give a crap. And yet then they'll also be like, well, we never showed them to die on screen, so we can bring them back later, which they're doing with Kim Dickens, which they did with Cole. Was it Cole or Colt last season when he showed up? The remainders of the stadium people, and they were just road bandits.
Oh,
now.
That's right. They could do that with him, didn't they?
So I'm either they should show that these people are still existing somehow, like all the people from the apartment building were at Lake Town, right? Not the apartment building, the office building.
Yeah.
And so I feel like they need to put some closure on some of these other story elements that they did develop a little bit, because Nora, I believe was her name, the woman who was wearing like the power suit. They developed this character a little bit, and then they can't just leave them all on the wayside. They have to actually do something with them. That'll be one of my requests of this season, is that they don't just say, I mean, I forget what Strand's place was called. We spent a fair amount of time there too, but all of those characters that we knew from there, like Ginny, were all dead. So it was like a bunch of faceless extras anyway. Not that sad to see that community go. So whatever, but Lake Town, at least I feel like we could benefit from seeing whatever might have happened to it. I don't know.
I don't think you're going to get your wish,
No,
but
I
we'll
probably
see.
won't.
Unless they can conveniently bring some of those people back for their own purposes. But I think this is going to be all about Strand's little tower, the whatever Padre is with Kim Dickens and Alicia, and then the Morgan, Grace, June, and John show. So,
And don't forget Sherry and.
Oh, that's right. I guess we do
Dwight.
have so anyway, they're gonna, and that's gonna be a lot of trouble to bring all these groups back together and CRM people. So anyway, but I would love to hear what people think about it. So send us an email, reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com. You can tweet at us, reanimatedpcast, or you can leave a note on our webpage, which is reanimatedpodcast.com. And so we'll talk about the next couple episodes next time. And we may have to do more than 2 at a time, Stuart. We may. I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can slog through all this 2 at a time. But
part 2 of season 7 is coming out soon. Yeah,
I know. We'll have to see what happens. But anything else to add?
No, I think I've taken all the disappointment I can for right now. So let's put this aside and get back to it again in the future.
All right. Until next time. Ciao.
Adios.